So our speaker tonight is Debora Shelby. She lives in the Detroit metro area along with me, and she's a recent graduate of the Code Platoon bootcamp. So she's in the midst of a career change, which is really exciting. And she joined us last month and is excited to share her knowledge with our Michigan Python community. And today she's going to be giving a talk on mastering loops of Python. So thanks so much, Debora. We're excited for your talk.
You're welcome. How's everybody doing? So I'm going to get started with discussing the difference between the while loops and the for loop. So a while loop is used when you don't know how many times you want to execute a set of statements or execute the loop. And then you use the for loop when you know how many times you want to execute the loop. Next, a couple of companies that use loops. The first one would be Facebook. And they, in most cases, the video ads on Facebook that are 30 seconds or less, they loop for approximately 90 seconds. Looping means that your video replays after it ends. For example, if you have a video that is 30 seconds long, your 30-second video loops 3 times for a total of 90 seconds. Next, there's Amazon Web Services. It counts the number of times customers are looped through the looping branch. This block is often used with a get customer input block. For example, if the customer doesn't succeed in entering their account number, you can loop to give them another opportunity to enter it. I'm going to give a demonstration of while loops and for loops, and this is with a guessing game. And I'll give you guys a chance to participate if you like. So with this game, let's see, I'm sorry. Okay, so with this game, it's gonna, you enter a random number. It's gonna whatever number you enter, it's gonna say either the number is too high, too low, or you guess the right number. Is anybody interested in playing? If not, then I'll just proceed. So it allows you, you have a total of 10 guesses. So I'll get started.
We had 12 come in chat first. You want to do that?
So this says you have 9 guesses left. My guess was too low, so I'm going to try something a little bit higher. It has 8 guesses left. It says it's too high. Let me try something a little bit lower. Guess it's too high. 45. Let's try 35. Oh, I guessed it right. Oh, wow. So this has a combination of, it has while loops, and it has, at the beginning, it has the while loop there. And then it has the a for loop in there also. Okay, so next I'm going to give a demonstration of the while loop. Or discuss it at first. So for the while loop, we first need to define an initialization variable, which can be the letter I, and we can set it to 1. And it starts with the while keyword. And it has a condition that is an expression and evaluates to true or false. The condition is followed by a colon that tells Python to start a new line of code. On the next line, there's an indented block of code called the while clause. With the while loop, the condition is checked at the start of the iteration. If the condition is true, the clause is executed. The first time the condition is false, the while loop is skipped. So the while loop, the 3 important characteristics of the while loop is you need to have an initializer, the condition, and an incrementer or decrementer. So for this while loop, it has the condition here, which is line 13, and it has the condition, which is in line 14, and this one has an incrementer. And I'm going to give a demonstration of how this one works. So that prints out the numbers 1 to 4. Next, I will give a demonstration of another while loop, and this is going to print the numbers in reverse order. So the initial value is 5, and then it's going to decrease by 1 each time it goes through the loop, and the ending value would be 1. So it's 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Another thing we can do with loops is we can use the continue statement. The continue is a control statement. As soon as it is encountered, the current iteration is skipped, but the rest of the iterations will be executed. So for this particular iteration, it'll print out the numbers 1, 2, and then it's going to skip the number 3, and then it's going to print 4, 5, and 6. And I'll demonstrate that. So it printed out 1, 2, it skipped the number 3, then it printed out 4, 5, and 6. Another thing we can do with the while loops is we can print out information with the break statement. Now, by using the break. The break is a control statement. As soon as it is encountered, the execution skips the whole block. And I'll give a demonstration of how this one works. So I printed out the numbers 1, 2, and 3. All right. So at 3, it broke out of the loop. So I printed 1, 2, 3, and it skipped the other numbers. Okay. So, okay. Next,
So
I'm
sorry,
going to.
Deborah,
Oh, I'm sorry.
can I jump in real quick with a question?
Mm-hmm.
So on your while loop there with the break, and I get where it breaks if equal to 3. So just to make sure, so like if X was 6, then it wouldn't execute anything then, right?
If it was 6.
Because it would be greater than 5, right?
Correct.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm. Yes. All right. So
May I add something?
sure.
Okay, with the while statement, because x equals x plus 1 on the next loop, it'll see that x is greater than 5. So any command that comes after that, it immediately does not execute and continues to the next non-indented portion. Because Python does everything by indentation for these subsections of things like while and for loops.
Is that a question or just an explanation?
Oh, it was just a little add-on to what she was.
Oh, okay. I'm sorry. Okay.
I'm sorry, I didn't specify.
Oh, okay. I'm sorry. Okay. Thanks for that input. I appreciate the feedback. Okay. Okay. So I wanted to give an example of let's see, we have this one right here, the infinite loop. So with the infinite loop, a loop becomes infinite loop if a condition never becomes false. So with the infinite loop, we have the initiator, we have the condition, but there's no incrementer or decrementer. So without that, it would be an infinite loop. And I'll demonstrate what's going to happen here. Let's see. Oops, what did I do here? Let me see.
You just missed the F in infinite.
Oh, that's what I did. Thank you. So it's printing out 1 continuously because there's no increment or a decrement statement here. Okay. All right, so next I will discuss the for loops. All right, so. Okay, so this is an example of a for loop. And for loops are used for iterating over a sequence such as tuples, lists, dictionaries, or strings. It can execute a set of statements. For this particular example, the X represents one element of a list at a time. And it will fetch one by one the values in the list, and it'll print the information. And I'll give an example of how this works. So it printed the exact information that's in the list of fruits, which is apple, banana, and cherries. And then I guess this X in here, you can really name, this could be any type of, I guess, information here. You can name it Santa if you want to, for Santa and fruits. But if you do that, when you print this out, this it has to be Santa here too. So it could be I, K, Santa, or whatever, but whatever you put here, it has to match whatever you put in the print statement. Okay, I'll go to the next example. Okay, next I'm going to show you is the example of printing out the for loop with a string. So this will loop through the letter in the word banana, and it'll print every character in the string. So it printed all the characters in the word banana. Now there's also the break statement for the for loop. Break is a control statement. As soon as it is encountered, the execution skips the whole block. And for this example, it's going to exit the loop when X equals banana. So it printed apple, and then since X equaled banana, it exited the loop and it didn't print cherry. Great. Okay, continue. Let's see. Another example I'll show you would be with the range. Okay. For the range, this has for X equals range 6, and then it'll print the information. So for the range function, the default value is 0. And then it says 0 to 6, but actually it's going to print 0 to 5. And you can also, with the range function, you can also have a step value in there, which I'm going to show you shortly, where you can either increment or decrement, or you can print numbers, in different ways. So I'm going to show you how this one works. So this prints out the numbers 0 through 5. Okay. Let's see, the next example. Okay, the next example is I'll show you how to increment with the range. Okay, this is a default. Okay, so the range function defaults to the increment the sequence by 1. However, it is possible to specify the increment value by adding a third parameter. like for this example, we have 2, 30, and 3. So it's going to print out the numbers 2 to 29, and it's going to increment by 3. So it print out the numbers 8, 11, 14, 17, 20, 23, 26, 29, and it's by 3. I guess there's increments by 3 and increments of 3. Okay, the next example is using the range function, and it has the decrementer in there. Okay, so this is going to print the numbers in reverse order from 5 to 1, not including 0. So that's the result for that one. And I believe that's it. That concludes my presentation.
Any questions, anyone?
Yeah, I've got a question. Deborah, I've only used Python and Jupyter Notebook. So what are you using to run your scripts?
I am using VS Code.
Thank you. Do you like it?
Yeah, I like it. It's easy to use. I guess I use it for that and some other code that I'm practicing with.
Nice.
Some other, I guess in the boot camp we did like JavaScript and Django and Postgres. So I use it for all those.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
One thing
Thank you
to
for the
remember with,
presentation, by the way.
Thank you.
one thing to remember with looping is like the for I in range and that kind of thing. Python, unless specified otherwise, starts at 0. For many things, like on strings, if you're trying to get the first character, it is not 1, it is position 0.
Yes. Thank you for that information.
Do you happen to know if Python has do while loops?
I've seen that do while loops. I have seen that. But then I've also seen, I guess the most used loops in Python were the for and while loops. I have seen the do while loops. I have seen those.
You could like emulate a do while, but there is no built-in like do while loop in Python, I don't think.
Okay.
That's correct. And also there's a new thing called switch in case. So the people who are coming from C++ backgrounds, they always look for those. So we didn't have it till I think 3.10 or 3.11 Python. But I guess now we do. I mean, you can also find the switch case. But you can emulate before that, most of the people, they'll probably just try and emulate how we use the switch case.
Right, with ifs. So the switch case, is that better performance then? Is that why they put it in?
Well, I'm not sure about that, but you have it now. That's what I know.
So there's until, but not while.
I don't think it's for performance. It'd be like if you had like a really long if else statement in Python, like if day is 1, return Sunday. If day is 2, return Monday. You could do that in a switch case statement a little bit more compactly so that you're not writing this really long if else statement. It probably is only useful for a small set of problems to solve, I think, though.
Correct. Yeah. Thanks, Dan.
Any other questions for Deborah on while or for loops?
Yeah, how do you break out of an infinite while loop? You just close the program?
I guess for that example, I had just terminated. I just but you need to add an incrementer or a decrementer to it. Because that's the 3 characteristics of the while loop. You need the initiator, the condition, and you need to add an incrementer statement or a decrementer statement.
All right, thanks.
May I? There's also other way to do it, like you can break out of it through Control C.
Oh, yeah, control, okay.
I was going to ask about the boot camp that you did, like the format and the duration and the cost, and if you enjoyed it, all that stuff.
It was challenging because I don't do coding on my job because I'm a claims rep. So it was totally new and it was challenging. So, but it was challenging and rewarding. I felt like that some days. It was a part-time evening program. It started in April and we started around mid-April and finished October the 16th. So, and then we had class like 3 nights a week from 7 to 10 p.m. And then on Saturdays from 9 a.m. to 6 p.m. So I didn't have much of a social life because after I got off of work, I was either in class or studying. But it was challenging but rewarding. So it was pretty. We moved pretty fast. We started off with a little bit of JavaScript, and then we moved into Python, and then we moved into Python. Then we moved into Postgres, and then we moved into Django. And so, and then we had like midterm project where we did our own, we worked on our own and created a project, something we wanted to do. I did a travel blog with I guess his back end was Django and the front end was React. And it was, I guess it had some serialization in there too. But anyways, and then we did a group project in the end. And my group project, I guess with our group, we refined the Tetris game and added some features, some new features to it. And the front end was React, the back end was Firebase. So yeah, it was challenging, challenging and rewarding.
That's awesome. And you feel like the instructors were pretty accessible and they could help you out if you had questions?
Yes.
Cool. Thanks.
You're welcome.
A question for Deborah and then maybe others too about use cases for for and then while loop. I mean, I know my default is to use the for loop or even use the for command in list comprehension. And I have the impression that while loops are used often with interactive programs and GUIs, while something is true or while a button is not pressed, do something, and then when you get a button pressed, then do something else. But so my default is always to use for loops all the time. I think I don't use while loops hardly at all. I don't know if that's what you learned, Deborah, or anybody else in the group has coding practices they want to share about that.
I guess in the class, oh, I'm sorry, I'm just saying in the class, we were taught both, but I guess since I've been preparing for this class, I was looking at Medium and I guess other places, and they were, I guess, discussing something similar to what you said. I guess for loops were easier. I guess we're more in use than while loops. I guess we're used more than while loops. So.
Last time I had to use it, and it came in really handy for this. I've got a little routine that concatenates, and then it stores them in another location and renames them based on the account number that they're associated with. And you sometimes end up with repeats. And so I use a while loop to see if there's an existing file in that directory of that name, and then it will append an extension like _002 after it. And it was really handy for that. That seemed like the best approach.
using it where you may have a condition that pops up and you're uncertain of the data that you're querying, and then, so that makes sense. Okay.
Right. And then if 002 is also there, then, you know, it knows to increment to 003, and it will keep going until it finds a file name that's not taken.
If any of you are using like a Raspberry Pi or Circuit Python or that kind of thing, while loops are beautiful things if you're waiting for a condition to pop up on, say, somebody pressing a switch.
Yeah.
So that way the system's continuously cycling through something, or, you know, with web pages, Flask or something, you could also do the same thing, look for changes to happen and act on them.
Hey, Deborah, do you have the code from that guessing game handy? Because maybe that'd provide a, yeah, we ran it, but I think if you scroll up, there is a while loop at the beginning, right? Because it's
Right.
looking for input from the user. So it's looping until the user has entered something there, right? So
Right.
Yeah, the last time I used one was looping through a linked list, if you know what that is, where the node points to the next node. So whenever you don't know how many iterations you want to go through, that's what while loops are really good for. And then if you put while true like that, you can just break out of it instead of having a condition there.
Great. That's really helpful.
any other questions for Deborah on while or for loops? Okay, thanks so much, Deborah, for the great presentation and going through while and for loops. I think that's concept we all use quite a bit in Python. And if you're new to Python, something you will use. And I thought it was really informative. So thanks, Deborah, for being the presenter tonight. Really appreciate it.
Thank you. Thank you. And thank you all. I appreciate your questions and your feedback. Thank you for being an audience.